to let us know if you're in Clubhouse and you're listening in. We are super excited because, I named this in Clubhouse, I named this credit scores for real estate investors, but really it's for anybody who's an entrepreneur. And oops, I have to mute us over in the on the YouTube thing so that we don't get super loud. So first of all, yay!
Welcome, everybody.
I am Jennifer J. Hammond, and I'm so excited. We got Merrill, Chandler in the house bright and early on Saturday morning, and we are live. Yay!
Loving it this morning, loving it.
So, of course, as you know, one of the first things I want to know, Merrill Chandler, you have dedicated your life to helping people in funding, and I'm going to say credit. We're going to talk a lot about credit scores, but have you helped someone, anyone, get $1 million in business lines of credit?
Yes. Okay. Wonderful question. Short answer is yes. Multiple persons. But the amazing thing is that this is the best story ever, right? Because we have what's called $1 million funding formula, right? Multiple banks, multiple $100,000 lines of credit, up to $1 million, we say. Well, people will get in there and like we've had one client, $3.6 million in business funding, right? We have another client who was 870 a year ago. So, but here's the point I wanted to make is that people think that they have this idea in the mind of how much money they can deploy, right? So we'll get a client, they'll get a $200, $300, $400,000. They will swear on their life that they want that million. And then all of a sudden they fall off. We stop hearing from them. I mean, they're active clients and we stop hearing from them. They're like, I can't, why aren't you moving forward? You're only at 350. Why aren't you moving forward? And they're like, I can't deploy the capital that I already have. Thank you. I didn't mean to stop showing up. It's now I'm real estate investing to death over here because they could.
What a problem to have. I have too much money to deploy.
Because think about it, many times the money to deploy represents, instead of doing like one flip a quarter, let's talk younger, smaller investors, a flip a quarter, right? And so if you need 200 grand every quarter, that's awesome. But they don't realize that they have to double their efforts and in time investment, the more money they have to do more flips, get bigger contractor groups, get more, have bird doggers out, look at farming properties. So the money on our end, anyway, the money's not the problem. It's the ability to produce properties once you have capital, write a check and do a deal. So it's been fun. And that's numerous clients are like, thank you. I can't use what I got. So it's been fun.
The things I want to start with is so often that is just a complete lie, is that you can't have access to money. We're in, what are we? We're the end of June in year 2021, and people are so like, this pandemic, oh my gosh, it's just, there's no money out there. I can't find it. It's super hard to find. And that's one of the reasons I was just super excited about doing this hour with you. And because number one, it's a lie when you think that it's not available to you, because everybody. And one of the questions before you even showed up in the room that I had someone ask me to ask you, and I know this is such a fun one too, because I know your story, which we're not going to get into. We'll do that later. But your story. So, what is the possibility, and is it possible, I guess is the question, to overcome things like bankruptcy and still get millions of dollars in credit for your business?
Okay, so to full transparency, I haven't gotten $1 million for a client who currently has a bankruptcy on their profile. Okay, but here's the funny thing about the credit repair versus optimization versus fundability, right? Credit repair, you write it, dispute, hope something comes off the credit report, and everybody's like, oh, yay, right? But you can't repair your way. That's why I won't reveal the secret yet, but that's where I come from. I come from a world of credit repair where you can't actually fund your way or you can't repair your way to fundability. And yet we have it could be hundreds of clients. I know there's dozens and dozens of clients, over 50 clients who currently have fundable 800 plus profiles where they're actually getting funding. and still have a derogatory account. It could be a collection. It could be a late pay, mortgage late pays. It happens, and charge-offs, etc. Because
one of the concerns we have right now, Merrill, is the medical bills. Somebody has huge medical bills, and then they're like, "Oh my gosh, I'm never going to be able to get funding again, whether I want to buy a house, whether I want to be a real estate investor." And is that true?
Yeah. Okay. So when it comes to the short answer, my team has been trying to coach me on how to do short answers before my long answers, right? Short answer. No, that's not true, because even the most recent version of FICO software that measures us, and establishes our risk, they actually in Model 9, in 2014, they came out with the software that actually discounts all medical. 100% of medical. It's not even, it doesn't even list on your credit report. Now, on other versions of the software, it may list on the credit report, but the lenders, the mortgage brokers, the lenders do not look at a medical, because it is not a representation of true borrower behavior and borrower fundability. For example, they'll tell us that they've had people with 800 plus credit scores in their modeling. Now, these are my conversations with the FICO score development team. And they'll measure hundreds and hundreds of people who have 800 plus scores otherwise, and they get a heart condition, something happens where there's catastrophic illness, and they don't stop paying all their other bills. The overwhelming ones are the medical. And so they basically just kind of culled out, and they just cut out medical as one of those negatives. So the rules are any medical is discounted. Any paid collection is discounted, and any unpaid collection under $100 is not counted. So
that's what you just said. It's in very specific softwares, and again, we'll get into that. But so I want to kind of go back. So anyone who's watching us on YouTube, I went ahead and I wanted to make sure that we stay a little bit focused. As you can see, I loved it, Merrill. We're trying to get those shorter answers, and we're trying to just really focus on, I want to say, digestible things that are rock solid truths. And so I came up with the 7 real estate investor secrets to create $1 million in business lines of credit. So we go over some real basics in here. And if you don't know these basics, then the rest of the conversation, even like you just said about the software, if you don't understand the software and all the different kinds of software, now you may not understand exactly what Merrill was just talking about. So I want to step back a second. And then, of course, once we go through this, of course, we're going to answer questions for all of you. All of you who are in Clubhouse. And I got a bunch of other questions for, like I said, people who have emailed us, as well as the people who arrived early in the Clubhouse. So number one, the first thing in the 7 secrets is the difference between a credit score versus fundability. And you alluded to this in the beginning, because you were talking about credit score versus somebody actually getting an approval. So let's talk about the difference between these two things.
Beautiful. First of all, credit scores have little to nothing to do with approvals. Credit scores are used after you're approved to determine what your interest rate's going to be and what your loan amount or your credit limit will be. But but they don't even come in. They're like the 5th or 6th consideration when they're determining how much to give you. So think of it this way. In fundability, there are 40 borrower behaviors that are measured over 24 months, the previous 24 months. That's what approves you. Then once they say, yes, we want to approve them, they fit our risk model. Then how much do we want to give them? And how long should the term be? What should the interest rates be? So credit score, that's the biggest myth, Jennifer, is that we believe that we have one credit score and that it runs our approvals, it runs our whole financial lives. And it's just not the case. It has never been the case. And I don't believe it will ever be the case, because the score, one number is too complex. So they measure the 40 borrower behaviors, and then use your score to determine your interest rate and your approval amount, the loan or limit.
So the next thing is the credit score itself. You know, so often I know this is broken down, and I put a graphic up here, but it doesn't really give the full picture. I tried to oversimplify this. So talk a little bit about what is the credit score made up of? You know, there's all of these, and I know you actually have titled them borrower behavior. So payment history, amounts owed, like how much are you utilizing in your credit? So talk about some of these things that are important that make up your score.
Absolutely. Well, think of it this way. You are right now, those 5 areas: payment history, amounts owed, length of history, new credit, and credit mix. Now, think of that as a pie chart. Now divided up by 40, and all the borrower behaviors fit in those 5 things, but it's way more complex. In fact, did you realize, I'm bringing something up? Do you realize that there is actually 150 borrower behaviors that are modeled, but we do the borrower behaviors, we do 40 are currently used by FICO. And it's like a pool of borrower behaviors, right? Some of them, they're known as risk scores, they're et cetera, or not risk scores, risk influencers. But these 40 borrower behaviors, so they tell us the general mix, right? Here's 5 things you got to watch for, and the percentages. Those are true. What they don't tell us is what are all the other things that little pie is sliced up. I mean, if we were at a family reunion, we wouldn't be getting but a little crack of a piece of pie, because they're so small, but so influential given those particular things. And different borrower behaviors have way powerful impact on our fundability, our ability to get approved.
Well, and the one thing I wanted to say before I go into the next thing is, so in this, you know, of course, like I said, I super oversimplify this, but there are things, and just to kind of give one of those out there that I remember when I first met you, which was what, it seems like eons ago, which is like
7, 8 years ago. Yeah.
I was thinking 10 years, but it's been a long time. And I remember one of the first things was about your name. One of the most important things, of course, is that whatever credit profile you have, that your name is so important. And I think that just blows people's mind, because again, I think about, if you take out, for example, if you took out your purse or your wallet, whoever you are, and you laid out all your credit cards, is your name exactly the same? And if it's not, then you're a bit of a schizophrenic, kind of confused
borrower
identity. Yeah, for the credit software that is evaluating you, they don't know who you are, because you're schizophrenic, because you have different names and they're looking for it. So talk a little bit about, you know,
I love how I love literally how you create a whole new versions of this credit schizophrenia. That'll be the name of my next book. Okay, so it'll be on identity. So there is an identity crisis in America. America is having an identity crisis. It just doesn't happen to be with schizophrenia in our persons, but schizophrenia in how lender software views us. Now, think of it this way: back in the day, 5-10 years ago, and longer, far further back, we would go in with our driver's license, we'd have our social security card, and we would literally show up and a banker would look at us, that compares just like they do at TSA at the airport. They're like, please drop your mask. Yep, that looks like you. And then they would know that we are us. Over the last 10 years, all lenders are moving towards automatic underwriting, which means they're using software. They're literally just doing analysis of the data that's on your credit profile, all the other databases, and what you put on your application. And before I knew what I was doing, I was Merrill Chandler, Merrill R Chandler, Merrill Ray Chandler, and there are 29 Merrill Chandlers in the credit bureau databases, only 3 of which are me. So what the funny thing is, yeah, and so an algorithm, I think of identity as the gatekeeper to your funding approvals, gatekeeper to your approvals, because if they don't recognize who you are, they are not going to go any further. They don't care how, if you make $1 million a year, they don't care what else you are. If you are not legitimately by their.
We lost Merrill there for a minute, but I'm sure he's coming back. I'm sure he'll be back any second. And the thing that we're talking about, though, is identity. And as you probably know, in real estate, identity fraud is truly an epidemic. It is really becoming worse and worse and worse. And so being able to get funding is really critical, that you have in your credit profile, that people understand your name and your identity is absolutely, I mean, it's so important when you're looking at your credit score. And oops. Oh. Okay. Reconnect, though. Go ahead and reconnect, because that's important. We'll get you back on the live. And in the meantime, for everybody who's in Clubhouse, if you guys got questions, feel free to raise your hands. We've got a couple more things we're going to go through, and then probably about half past the hour, we're going to start answering your questions. I got a list of a few, but feel free to raise your hand, and we'll pop you up in just a minute. And Merrill, I'm looking for you. Oops, there you are. You're back up. Okay, Merrill, mute your line on Clubhouse so we don't echo. There you go. Woo! Oh, wait a minute. You almost muted. Go ahead and mute your line on Clubhouse.
Oh, I'm speaking on both forums. There we go. Woohoo! We're back.
Woo! There we go. So we were talking about identity and how important identity is before you put it off. So you don't want to be a schizophrenic, or you don't have that multiple personalities. You want to be one person and be 100% certain who you are, because the credit software that is evaluating, should we lend you money or should we not, they don't have any way. It's not like they're sitting down with you and you're going into a bank and they're looking at you, as you said, and they take off their mask and they say, hey, are you really Merrill Chandler? They're not doing that. It's just a credit algorithm. I almost want to say it's a robot who's looking at you and trying to figure out your identity. So that's really important part of your credit score, right?
Well, absolutely. Well, more fundability than score. FICO has told us, we asked, so does cleaning up your identity positively affect your score? And they said it was kind of like, not really was the answer. I mean, that's a quote, not really. But we, with our clients, because they don't want to give away the farm, and I don't want them to, even though I signed an NDA with them so we could look under the hood. The point of it is that we have seen anecdotally, client after client after client, they didn't do anything but clean up their score and clean up their identity, and it was 10, 15, 20 point positive movement. Because think of it, think if the score represents a risk factor, and the higher the score, the lower the risk, then if the software knows exactly who you are, if all the databases have you as the exact same set of identity data, name, address, phone number, and it's perfect, doesn't it make sense that you are an easier bet with less risk? So if it measures risk, it should go up. They said, not really. I see significant movements just by cleaning up a credit score, a credit identity.
Okay, and so now let's talk about specifically, is the ability to get the funding for your business. And let's talk about the funding for your business with a fake, as you call it, which I think is such a great name, you've deemed it, the fake scores versus a FICO credit score. And again, I wanted to start with the basics, because so often we have this conversation, and you and I, like I said, known each other and done so many interviews for so long on so many different platforms. And then I realized, oh my gosh, people have no idea, because you and I are joking about FICO scores or something. And I realized, oh no, they don't know the difference. So let's go through the difference between a FICO score and a FICO credit score.
Perfect. So FICO, since the 50s, FICO has been building what are called predictive analytics and risk assessment, if we want to get technical. So they're just seeing how risky a borrower is by looking at these borrower behaviors and measuring each one of us, right? Well, those scores have literally over 50 years, 70 years of practice, and they have billions of transactions to analyze. All right. And they measure 40 borrower characteristics. Well, back in 1996, when the credit bureaus were mandated by Congress, hey, you got to give a copy of all of the raw data to consumers who ask. You got to do it for free. And they're like, well, if we can't charge for the information, Congress may gonna give it away for free. Then what can we charge for? And they're like, well, it's being scored over here by FICO behind the curtain, and nobody knows what's going on over here. Why don't we just make up a score? People know about a score. They just have never seen one. And so all three bureaus literally pull the stuff straight out of their hat. I'm being very, very moderate in my language. They're literally pulling stuff out of a hat saying, let's build a score. So they'll base it on 10 or 15 things. They'll do, and they created false scores, fake scores that lenders do not use. So our definition is a FICO score is any score that is not used to make a lending decision. And if it doesn't have the FICO logo, it is not a true score. Now, the biggest, you have a few people listed here on the, but the big one you missed out is the greatest travesty in current credit, in modern credit history. 80 million people, and I'm giving it away, guys, just giving it away. 80 million people are counting on Credit Karma scores for their financial self-image. And those scores are false scores. They are fake scores. They are scores not used by lenders. In fact, right next to the scores, if you go to Credit Karma, they only give you 2 scores because Experian uses FICO. So there are only 2 scores on Credit Karma, Experian, Equifax, TransUnion. Right next to those scores, they'll say, oh, here are some credit cards that might be interesting to you. And if you click on those credit card offers, they pull FICO scores to evaluate you for approval. So it is the biggest bait and switch of all of modern financial history. Here's your scores, and you guys have seen their ads. They're so cute, to a couple sitting in a house looking with a real estate agent going, hey, we want this house. And they look at their Credit Karma score and it's like 760. And they're like, and the real estate agent, not the mortgage broker, the real estate agent says, yes, you qualify. All of that is BS. 100% of that is BS, because nobody has ever been approved for a mortgage using their Credit Karma score, ever. And in fact, there was a study done of 1,000 people who were subscribing to Credit Karma and had myfico.com credit score accounts, and they compared the scores head to head, and it was 30 to 40 point difference. Credit Karma was always higher, 30 to 40 points. Now, people are like, well, isn't that good? Well, the problem is that if you take your Credit Karma score and you go into a mortgage, or you go into an auto dealer, and you're 30 to 40 points higher on your Credit Karma score, and you have a 740, and then all of a sudden you go get an auto lender pulls up a 680, you're going to be pissed, and you're not going to know why until you heard it here first on the Jennifer Hammond Show.
Exactly. Jennifer Hammond! I'm so excited. I just love having you, because that enthusiasm for the truth is something I love. And I'm so excited that you are so passionate about making sure people know the truth.
Yeah.
Because
that's some BS right there.
Yeah. And I think it's so frustrating that Credit Karma does what it does. And I'm so frustrated that people don't understand the basics of, like, and you alluded to this in the beginning, and then you just said it again, but I want to emphasize it one more time. There are different softwares, right? Different software. So if you want to go buy a car, it's a different FICO software, right?
Yep. You're being scored by an entire, they're called versions. And so there are 3 published versions that are available to consumer, and a 4th one is coming out. So there's what's called FICO 542. That's kind of a group, 542. There's 8, FICO 9, and now released last year, FICO 10, which is not available yet to which lenders are, it's available to lenders, but we don't get them yet on FICO, myfico.com. By the way, I don't want to leave. It's free, guy. The credit reports are not free. I just want to tell you in every way, if you want the truth of your situation, go to myfico.com, myfico.com, and it will give you 28 credit scores. All are, just find out the truth. Don't believe, and go find out if you're on Credit Karma, just go find out. See if you're one of the poor folks whose Credit Karma scores are higher, significantly higher than their true FICO lender scores.
So I want to move us along a little bit. So talk a little bit about, so if we want to get $1 million or you want to get any kind of funding to be a real estate investor, some of the basic tips that people need to know about the foundation of establishing business lines of credit. It starts first with your personal, right?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, David Smith, who is my FICO liaison. Yes, I have a FICO liaison that I meet with regularly every month. Anyway, he told me that 80% of a business lending decision is based on your personal profile. The other 20%, go to the previous slide. The other 20%, you guys, is the other 20% down number 6. Go to number 6. Yeah. The other 20% of whether or not you'll get approved for business lending is based on the data points of your business identity, not your trade lines, not your DNB score. DNB scores, guys, went out the door in 2008. All business lending modalities changed in 2008 with the crash. Now they're evaluating. Okay, let's go back. You know that the number one loss for lenders is fraud. The number one source of fraud is legitimate borrowers' information being stolen and then building a business, a fake business, and then getting business funding. That is where the fraud comes from, right? The majority of their loss. So what they want to do is they're not looking at your DNB score. They're looking at, does the data points of your personal profile match all of the principal information on the business credit bureaus and the business databases? So what you see on the screen right now, every one of these have to be dialed in perfectly, because and business emails, they actually downgrade if you're like echelon advisors at gmail.com. To them, that is not, that it may be legitimate to us, and we may be making $1 million with that email, but to lenders, they want to see a fully fleshed out identity for the business, where every I is dotted and every T is crossed. So this is an awesome slide you have here. We have been doing this a long time together, because that's perfect.
Why, thank you. So let's talk about some of the other things that are important for somebody who's looking to get credit for their business. What are some of I put a bunch of C's on here, and again, this is such a simplified version of what you talk about. So like somebody's credit history, how important is that really to getting business lines of credit?
Well, it's vital, because because 80% of the decision is based on your personal profile, and they're going to go back 24 months to watch your borrower behaviors. Now, if you have derogatory accounts, late pays, charge-offs, bankruptcies, those may stay on 7 to 10 on your credit report, 7 to 10 years, and they will be measured against you. But the most recent 24 months is what is most vital. The most important information you're being measured on is the last 24 months. And then the rest of it kind of gets picked up. We won't get in, we don't have the time to get into the details of how the algorithm steps down the value counted against you. But what we need, over the last 24 months, I mean, think about it. Most mortgages, 24 months, 2 years of tax returns, 2 years of financials, 2 years, everything is measured in the most recent 2 years, 24 months. And so this data is vital, especially as we COVID moved everybody to automatic underwriting, who were kind of like, we can do it. We're hanging out. We're just a little mom and pop credit union here in Muskogee, Oklahoma. Well, COVID, nobody came to the branches. They closed down a bunch of Wells Fargo branches here and all over the country. So they're moving more and more to electronic serving, opening checking accounts electronically, opening up credit lines electronically. So that means our electronic footprint, our electronic signature, our electronic personality and identity all have to be flawless.
Yeah, so character is really important, that, the applicant's credit history. So all of that is absolutely important. The other thing that I get a lot from real estate investors is this is the 5 C's of credit, is capacity, the applicant's debt to income ratio. So talk about how much does that affect somebody's ability, especially you were talking, when we started off, we talked about, you have more than once gotten somebody, help them get approvals where all of a sudden they have so much money to deploy, they can't even spend it. So right. Talk about, the debt to income ratio and how that helps you or hinders you.
Now let's do a 1,000-foot view of all 5 of these, because guys, think of it as 5 cylinders, right? 5 cylinders that can go up to 10 for a total of 50 points. Lenders in their underwriting guidelines, let's say they need 40 points in order to approve you. They don't care where the 40 points come from, which means that if you have a stellar fundable profile, they will accept a higher debt to income ratio because you have proven in your borrower behaviors that you are a rock star and you're bulletproof. Capital, they'll require less down if you have a lower debt to income ratio or an amazing 24-month look back period for your personal credit. The collateral, they'll say, yes, we need to secure it, or no, we don't need to secure it, based on how full all of these cylinders are. Does that make sense? Yeah. So as long as you got 40 points, guys, now there are minimums. You got to have, let's say you got to have 5 points in every category, but how much you put down on one of your real estate loans depends on how rocking the fundability is of your personal profile. And so business lending, personal lending, it all comes out of it all sources from your personal profile. So we need to understand, guys, we got to hit that 40. Now, if you can get 42, 45, 47, 49 out of 50, then other lenders will be looking at that new account on your profile and go, this borrower is my perfect customer. And our goal from the Bootcamp, from my book, from everything that we do, Jennifer, my goal is to make you, your listeners, everybody, the perfect bank customer.
Yay! And that's the thing that I think is so powerful, is that, again, you're teaching principles. And that's one of the reasons when I put the 5 C's of credit together, one of the ones I wanted to address, because it is really important that you look at, all these different borrower behaviors and that you're figuring out where you can get those points. And, you and I have used this phrase before. It's like a fingerprint. Everybody is so different. However, there are principles, it's just like real estate investing, period. There are principles, to buying real estate, being able to make money in real estate and not losing money in real estate. So one of the things before I move on from the 5 C's of credit, because again, we want to talk about guideposts and some of the principles, but the unspoken C, I'm going to say, is the COVID-19 factor.
Nice.
That has influenced
well done.
So talk about of the 5 C's, the unspoken one, I want to say the hidden one that feels like we don't even know, we don't have the crystal ball to see the future. But tell us what Merrill's crystal ball is for the COVID-19, the unspoken C.
Well, thank you. That's brilliant. Whether I am good with my crystal ball or not, so far I've predicted a lot of really powerful movements in the borrower-lender relationship. Right. Well, one of the things we got to remember, COVID, I addressed it for a little bit, is that COVID isolated everybody, but we all make money off of interacting. So the interacting had to change into electronic and over the phone, over Zoom, etc. So so let's say that there's a slope here that that banks are adopting automatic underwriting like this. Well, COVID changed that slope to this. So many more people, so many more banks, financial institutions have moved to this automatic underwriting, which means that you guys, we're going to be denied if your data is not perfect, bulletproof. If you do not have your data points together, then you're not going to get approved. Period. You got to know what the 40 borrower behaviors are. You got to know what they're measuring, and you got to know what to do in each one of those borrower behaviors to strike that you're getting the most number of points possible.
Yes, I agree. I think that COVID-19 has made things in some ways more clear and more, in some ways more dramatic, because lenders are much more picky. They're always talking and touting all the time about interest rates are so low, they're incredibly low, but not everybody can actually get.
Nope. Can I address that? So yeah. I use the metaphor for a target. If you've seen any of my presentation boot camps or otherwise, it's a target. And when the economy is strong, when everybody's got a job and the likelihood of employment is still high, they're going to think of 7 or 8 rings that they're going to fund any deal that hits the target, no matter how close or how far away from the bullseye. But during times of financial stress, economic stress, COVID especially, what's interesting is the target became smaller. But if you were a borrower, if all of your borrower behaviors were dialed in so that you're super tight and you're hitting the funding bullseye in all 4 of these areas, they are funding a hand over fist. We've had over $45 million during COVID alone in the last 13 months. $45 million in fundings, guys, because there's those people who hit the bullseye, that's still in their lending framework. But if you are out here on one of the outer rings, your likelihood of employment, they don't know. Your likelihood of being able to pay your bills, they don't know. So they shrink that target. And if you're a bullseye borrower, you guys, man, we got it. That they are funding. They got tons of money. They just don't have anybody to lend it to unless you are their perfect customer.
Exactly. And I think that that's really one of the unspoken C in the COVID-19, the hidden thing that most people are not looking at when they're, watching, oh my gosh, the interest rates are so low. And oh my gosh, it's not as easy as it was before. And they are looking for some very specific things that you need to know. So I wanted to talk about, having somebody to ask these questions to, and I know you have an amazing team that really helps people. And I want to switch over to questions in a minute, but I wanted to make sure that we talk about, you have this incredible 2-day boot camp that is amazing because you don't pre-record it. It's something you actually do live. And
Correct.
You answer people's questions, whether they're business questions, they want to get $1 million worth of credit for real estate investing, or if they just want to improve their credit and their fundability. Correct. So that they can buy a house for themselves, you go over all this stuff. So talk about the 2-day boot camp and what people can expect.
Well, thank you, Jennifer. It's 2 days. It's July 9th and 10th. So 2 or 3 weeks from now, July 9th and 10th, Friday and Saturday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Both days. Mountain Time. So East Coast would be 11 to 7, and Hawaii time, I don't know, 4:30 in the morning. No, it's just kidding. So Mountain Time,
My
9 to
brother's in
5.
Hawaii. He'll get up early for you.
Yes. And we have so much fun. It is interactive, you guys. This is not a recording. This is me raw. Every single month when we do a boot camp, it also includes all of the recently acquired changes that are going on in the lender marketplace, FICO scoring, etc. I have regular meetings with my FICO liaison where we have an agenda to talk about things that are moving in SBSS. You had a slide about it with small business scoring service. There's all kinds of things on our docket to make sure that I'm up to date. Then I also attend lender forums where lenders are talking about how they are shape shifting because of COVID, how they're shape shifting their lending criteria and lending guidelines. Imagine, you guys, having someone that has a seat at the lender table. That's what we discuss at the boot camp. And we go through, there are over 30 funding strategies, 30 things to where you are now. Oh, and the homework, about the homework.
Oh my gosh. The homework
is legit.
It really is legit. If you don't do your homework, you're never going to get anywhere near as much. But if you do your homework, those 2 days will blow your mind. And again, I know you say this all the time, the testimonials, you can go to Get Fundable Jennifer with 2 N's, getfundablejennifer.com, and you can register for it. But on that page, you have these incredible testimonials.
Yep.
I mean, they blow your mind because again, we have been taught so many lies. And partly, I want to say the lies, they persisted because we're not getting regular updates. And there's so much changing. Just like you just said, you're getting all these regular updates because you have incredible connections. Yeah. And I hate to use the word insider knowledge because I think that could be misconstrued, but you're getting knowledge and information that is so much better than. And I'm just going to use, like Credit Karma is one that's just brutal because people are getting bad information. But then you have places like Lexington Law and other places that will try to repair, but you're still not getting the result you want.
Correct.
Which if it's millions of dollars for your business, for whatever you want to do, even if it's just $100,000 you want. So it's really important to understand it. GetFundableJennifer.com is the 2-day boot camp. You can go there and read the testimonials. I want to start getting through some of the questions.
Sure, go for it.
So the first one I have, this one was from Linda, and she was asking about, she's had a lot of clients. She's an accountant, and we call her the amazing tax lady. You've probably heard some of her presentations. She loves taxes, and she loves to give people all sorts of, especially the most overlooked deductions. But one of the things that her clients have asked her a lot is why does that credit score go up and down so much, even if it's like weekly? What is happening when somebody's feeling like, I didn't do anything? Yeah, right. How are you judging me right now? Because I tell you, that score really does feel like
it fluctuates
invalidation.
A lot. Yep. Oh yeah, we take it heart and soul. I mean, I know couples and families who actually compete in their scores, right? Until I tell them that it doesn't matter, and they're like, all right, well, then they go to the boot camp, and by the way, the boot camp guys has what we call a fundability index. We compare your current fundability against lender criteria head to head. You will know exactly how you stack up against lender criteria today. It's brilliant. But anyway, the point of that was that the reason why it fluctuates is because your score is not static. It doesn't just sit there. And so if you have, there are 40 things that are happening every single month on your profile that are being measured. 40. So if you have a positive movement in one of these 40, your score is going to go up. If you have a negative movement, let's say you charge up a card over 30% or over 50%, there's other thresholds, your score is going to go down. It literally is a roller coaster. And that's why at the boot camp, we talk about how to plane out, make you be the perfect borrower and have this straight line over here where it never fluctuates, and then you do all your activities over on business credit. A whole half a day is spent on that alone.
Well, and I was just going to say, one of the other things I know for sure that you talk about is that, like, credit cards, like, say for instance, you have 5 different credit cards. One of the unbelievable exercises you have is to find out when they report. So they all report at different times. So you've got so many things going on behind the scenes that if you don't understand about, that are affecting your credit score, but also are affecting your fundability, and really understanding the difference between those two, but understanding that it's not, there's your short answer. So we can all cheer you on to, your credit score is not static.
Yes, that's the short answer. That's the short answer. I'm working on it.
There you go. That's perfect. Because one of the other things is nothing in this universe ever stays the same. And I remember for me, like an example, and you can probably relate to this being out west, is that when you look at a house and you look at an older house that it has an old window, you might notice that it sags and that you're like, huh. And then I remember the first time someone said to me, well, everything's in motion. That glass is in motion. I'm like, glass in motion? And it just, again, I think for each of us, we're at a different point of understanding. But if you think of that, everything is in motion. It might be a totally different rate of speed. It's not like a water that drips down a piece of glass, but glass is in motion. Everything is in motion. So think about your credit score. It's in motion all the time.
Yeah, actually, that you just brought up a fascinating thing. For me, I've always loved it. Glass is actually the slowest moving liquid in the known universe.
I didn't know that. That's a great piece of knowledge.
That's why it gets heavier at the bottom. It's a slow moving liquid.
I love that. Well, that's great. Thank you. Yay!
But you heard it here first on the Jennifer Hammond Show.
I love it when we can get little pieces of information like that. So I think, one of the other questions we had was, of course, about the medical expenses. I want to make sure that I get that one. I know we kind of talked about it a little bit, but, with COVID-19 this year, it's been one where a lot of people are looking back at their medical expenses and trying to figure out, you mentioned this earlier, they may be paying everything else, but they're not paying the medical expenses because those are the ones that are just so extraordinary. Similar to like my question about bankruptcy, one of the things that I think is really important is having hope and knowing that there is a silver lining on the other side of it. So medical bills, kind of what are the strategies, and is it possible to still be able to get business lines of credit when you've gone through something like a bankruptcy, or you've gone through a brutal divorce, or it's been something like medical expenses? Maybe it was your spouse and it was brutal.
Yeah. So medical is different than the other two, than bankruptcy, divorce, because especially not an amicable divorce. We actually have an entire masterclass on how to prepare your finances for divorce, even if you're in a healthy relationship. But we have but the whole point of the medical is that, generally speaking, if you set up payment arrangements with any provider, whether it's $25 a month, $100 a month, whatever you can afford, and they may give you a means test. They may ask you questions to make sure that the amount you're proposing is fair or legitimate in your case. But as long as you're paying something, they generally will not report to the credit bureaus or anything. They'll keep it online. And many, in fact, the vast majority of medical collection agencies will delete. If you pay it off, pay to delete, you can actually have the negative collection account removed.
So one of the things I would say, the most critical part, at least from my experience of people that I know that have gone through having pay off huge medical expenses, is communication. Actually communicating with them, because I think unfortunately people become embarrassed and they feel like an ostrich. They just want to put their head in the sand and hide from it because it's embarrassing, it's horrifying, it's scary. It's the monster underneath the bed. I don't know what's going to happen to me. And I think it's really, really important to just have that principle of call up and be vulnerable.
That's the seventh C. That's the seventh C.
Yeah, there you go.
Communication, regardless of who the lender is, the creditor is, communication is the best way. That's how lenders this time, instead of 2008, where they're just wholesale foreclosing on everybody. They wanted to be in communication with their clients because they didn't want to end up that was a horrible experience for the lenders, not just for us homeowners. That was a horrible experience for lenders. And so they wanted to do it differently. And communication is key to that, Jennifer. Anytime that most lenders right now, especially the top tier lenders, are in very good spirits about moratoriums, about all kinds of things that are going to help us out if we're willing to communicate.
If we're willing to communicate. So in Clubhouse, I want to make sure that we honor those people. If anybody has any kind of questions, I don't know, let's start with the panel. I know, Linda, I think I got all your questions. Linda, if you're there, do you have any other questions for Merrill right now?
No, but thank you very much, because I've learned lots of information for my clients who I wish were listening right now. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're going to make sure this was live on YouTube, but of course it'll be now a recording. So I'd love for you to share it. Again, Merrill, just like me, is so passionate, and like you, Linda, is so passionate about just helping people understand more and make good decisions, financial decisions that help them be empowered, inspired, and so anybody in the audience, if you want to raise your hand, and then I'm going to John Lee. I know you're there with your grandson this morning, but I'm really curious if you have any questions for Merrill. John Lee?
Oh, hi, Jennifer. Thank you, Merrill. Boy, what great insights. The thing that really is an aha moment for me was the psych scores, because that's something I personally dealt with most of my life, because I'm a junior, but I'm not legally a junior. It goes back and forth.
Yes.
And things up a little bit. So, wow.
That's my exact situation. I'm not a legal junior, but everybody, when somebody would call the house, hey, can I talk to Merrill, junior, senior? So it just literally just folded out there. And sometimes I applied under junior because my dad and I did some different houses together. And so he signed it senior. And so it didn't look like the borrower and co-borrower were the same person, right? All of a sudden I get reported as Merrill Chandler Jr. And now one more confusing identity problem that I had to clean up.
I have that exact problem right now as we speak. I was looking at an email before, or actually during the call right here. My father and I are selling a property. He's a senior, and he's got dementia, which is not getting better every day. I've got so many issues. Paperwork's just unbelievable. So thank you for bringing that up. If it'll help anybody, please listen to Merrill right at that point right there. Thank you. That's
Absolutely. Glad to help. And like I said, we address in great and fine detail in our 2-day. You guys, getfundablejennifer.com. We literally show you how to fix all of that with your lenders, with the bureaus and everything, because it's so important. I'm just giving away as many strategies as I can fit into 2 days.
It is, and I think the 2-day boot camp is so critical. I know there was like 2 other people with questions, and I think I might have messed up bringing them up on the stage. But if you have a question, feel free, raise your hand. All you gotta do is go down to that little hand button and push it. I'm not gonna make, there you go. There's another one. Okay. Kennedy, hi.
Hey, Juliana, how are you?
I'm doing fantastic, Jennifer. Hello, Merrill. Hello. I heard about Bootcamp. I'm like, yes, I had to come and co-sign on that. I don't have any question. You all need to attend this 2-day Bootcamp. Trust me.
You are so sweet.
Will be blown. That's all I came up to say. And I'm
we have random strangers to the audience just popping out of nowhere. But thank you, Juliana. You're a doll for sharing that. And it's true. And we've had so much fun since, because, oh, by the way, if you go to the boot camp, the gold event pass, you actually get to, they're 2 days a week. I have sessions that are live Q&As that your event pass gets you access to this type of a forum twice a week to answer your questions and help you implement what you've learned in the boot camp. It's so much fun. And that's where Juliana I get to spend time every week since she attended her boot camp.
Amen, amen, amen to that. I co-sign again.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Okay, anyone else would like to pop up and say hi real quick or ask a question? Feel free. We still have a couple more minutes. If not, I'll keep asking. I always have a million questions for Merrill. He's a million question Merrill. There's always
Million question Merrill.
So million question Merrill. So let's see if we can take away another one. So one of the other questions that I had, I think it was Linda might have been asking this question before, but the one thing that is very confusing that people don't understand, especially as real estate investors, there is definitely a different credit score if you're getting a car versus a mortgage versus business lines of credit. And right now, of course, with the SBA giving a lot of money out, this is something that gets very confusing. Will you talk about the difference between credit for a car, just because, again, people are always asking these things, versus a mortgage versus a business line of credit?
Perfect. All right. So there are, just like there are 3 bureaus and each bureau collects independent data. They're not related, you guys. A lender, Chase, Wells, PNC Bank, they will report the same account information at all 3 bureaus. So that means that there are 3 different scores for the data, because we don't know. FICO wants to make sure that whatever bureau is reporting has a score. So there's 3 scores this way. We call it horizontal between bureaus. There are also 3 different scores going between versions. There, I talked about 542, 8, and 9. Those are versions. Now, let's make this a little funner. Is that a word? So more fun. Now, in addition to 3 wide and 3 deep, there is 3 different versions. There's mortgage, there's auto, there's bank card.
It's 333.
That exactly. So it's 3 to the 3rd power number of credit scores. Now hold it. My geek's starting to come out, man. I'm glad all of a sudden I'm going to pull out my whiteboard here and we're just going to start going off, right? But the whole point is that there are review scores. So when you do when they do a soft pull, that's a review score. But there's auto scores, there are mortgage scores, and there are then there are what are called bank card, or mostly they call them bank card scores, but it's used for unsecured, and that's what's used for business lines of credit as well for the institution. So bureaus, versions, and industries. Ta-da! There you go.
That was perfect, because we're right at the top of the hour. And I just want to say, number one, everybody should go to the boot camp. If you haven't been to the boot camp, you can go to the boot camp. I've been to the boot camp over and over and
it's
over.
Crazy.
And number one, I know we didn't talk about your story, but you do share a bit about your personal story. And I think it's really important people to know that you're not some guru who didn't experience hard times. You're somebody who actually came from the school of hard knocks, and realized, okay, I have learned so much and I want to share it. And I think that that's really important when people think about that. And the boot camp, as you said, is live. You can ask questions live, and you can really, if you do your homework, which you get homework beforehand. When I first got the homework, I was like, are you kidding? This is not homework that you can get done in 5 minutes. You really actually have to do it, but it's about you figuring out where you are. Because if you want to get to whatever your goal is, if you don't know where you're starting, if you don't know the starting line, which is honestly taking an honest look at your finances in a way that I think is so unique and different from at least anything else I've ever experienced, as far as in 2 days, it'll just blow your mind. So anyway, I am so excited that you constantly keep doing it. And then it's not just some random pre-recording that people can listen to and not. And again, I know that there are different, tickets that you have. And if somebody wants to listen to it on their own time, that's fine too. But most important is if you show up, you do your homework, and you ask questions. Yay!
Yeah, it is super interactive, you guys. It is super interactive because I want to address today's lending environment, not even last month's, much less last year's, right? We're in a whole different game right now. So come and join me. And just come and join me because it is so much fun. GetFundableJennifer.com. Just go read the reviews. Read the reviews. Don't believe a word I say. You can believe Juliana because she's an innocent bystander, but just read the reviews and they speak for themselves.
Yeah, well, of course, as I always say, Merrill, it's always so much fun. It's such a pleasure.
Always.
Thank you for getting up early on Saturday morning.
Okay, yeah, I want you to know I love Jennifer so much. I dragged my ass out of bed at 6 a.m. On a Saturday morning because I love you, Jennifer. You and I have been doing this for years, and whenever you want, I'm here to serve you and your audience, your people, your tribe.
Well, thank you, Merrill, and I appreciate dragging your butt out of bed.
You got it.
All right. Have a blessed weekend. We'll see you later.